Hi, I'm Quinn and I'm autistic. If you're up to date with things around here, you'll know I've had a rough ride of it in recent times and that I'm in the midst of change. This isn't the next video I mentioned last week. That's still in progress and I'm looking forward to finishing it. This is a little update and a chat if you like. Just a bit of news and a few thoughts, and I'll keep the editing simple. If the title of this doesn't make much sense to you, then take a look at the playlist I've linked above and down in the description afterwards, and all will become clear. Yesterday was a pivotal one for me, for two separate but connected reasons. I was told some news I really didn't want to hear, which has a profound impact on me. News which placed a defining full stop on a significant chapter of my life. The other side is how I'm processing that information and the feelings attached. It was news that would be difficult to digest at any time, but the way I'm handling it right now confirms to me that I'm back behind the wheel of my own emotions. I may be still feeling the dragging effects of slow recovery, but I'm free of the immobilizing, suffocating grasp of burnout at last. If I'd received the same news 5 or 6 weeks ago, my burned out brain would have been cast far deeper into the pits of despair and dysfunction, but thankfully, I already crawled my way out in time. The fact that I'm sat here filming this is testament to where I'm at with my recovery. That said, I'm going to take it slowly for a couple of days to make sure I don't overstress myself, which means that the next video I mentioned last week might take a couple of days longer than anticipated. Part of the reason for this short delay is that I'm speaking at a virtual conference next week for the Northeast Autism Society. I've done this conference with them a couple of times before and I always enjoy it. I'll put a link to the conference webpage in the description below if anyone's interested. There's, I think, 4 speakers on the day, and we all do a 45-minute presentation with Q&As after. My bit this year is about how autism awareness sometimes backfires on us in the workplace, and it should be a lot of fun. Because I'm committed to that, and it's a fixed point in time, I need to make sure I'm fit for it on the day. So I've got to keep a close eye on my spoons for a few days. No prizes for guessing why this t-shirt came to mind today. I've a couple of other reasons for filming this one today, though. I wanted to say a quick thank you. I've been bowled over by the comments and messages I received in response to last week's video. In fact, I'm amazed at how many of you sent me words of support and offered practical help just from that video alone. The sheer depth of feeling surprises me because of who I am. I'm an autist who's really not used to being liked or receiving sincere thanks, so it's both delightful and alien all at once. I think it would surprise a lot of those realists out there who, shall we say, wouldn't expect autistic people to care so much. As to those of you who want to do something tangible or contribute in some way other than Patreon, please hold those thoughts for a few weeks. I'll tell you all a bit more about what I'm thinking of in the next video that this one isn't. This is also a screen test for a modified lighting setup. It's the same new lights, but the white backdrop behind me is a different one from last week's video. It's exactly the same, but wider. Not by much, but enough to give me more flexibility in how I present things. I'll see how this video turns out and I'll tweak things for the proper next video. Feedback is welcome, of course, and I'll try to accommodate anything that's both feasible and won't mar the experience for other viewers. I'll be taking this white screen down and putting up its green screen equivalent after I've finished, actually, to do a live screen test ready for that conference I mentioned. I find video conferences a bit weird, actually. I mean, I love them. They're great things. If there's one good thing that came out of the last few years, it's that video comms, remote working, and streaming, especially streaming of live events, became normalised. It's great for speakers like me with mobility issues, especially since the charity concerned next week is hundreds of miles from me. And it's great for attendees too, who can tune into top quality speakers from wherever they may be, and often at the fraction of the cost of a real world event. But when I do them, it always puts me in mind of the comedians I watched doing Zoom gigs during lockdown, talking about how the lack of audience feedback made their jobs more difficult. When I do virtual conferences, I really get what they were on about. I've done quite a bit of public speaking and training delivery, and I've often said that it can be, for me at least, easier than meeting with friends or family. I know that's quite the opposite of a lot of people, but there's a logic to that I might want to talk about at some other time. Now, I'm more than used to speaking to a camera with no immediate audience feedback whatsoever, and speaking in front of a live audience where I get plenty of instant feedback there. But live streaming is another world between the two. It feels more dangerous in a way, and more difficult to write for. Something to think about, I suppose. On the subject of comedians and comedy, if you don't take yourself too seriously, you like a laugh, and you don't mind a bit of grown-up language, then take a look at the Daily Tism website. I'll leave a link to it down below. I've always been a huge fan of comedy, especially stand-up. Back in the 80s and 90s, I used to mail order LPs and tapes recorded everywhere from the Albert Hall to the Comedy Store and play them till they wore out or loan them out never to be seen again. When I moved up country to somewhere with a couple of comedy clubs around, they became my favourite nights out, when I'm fit enough. It's one of the few public environments where I can totally lose myself in the performance if it's a good one. Actually, I should probably be specific when I say grown-up language. I don't mean words you might need to look up in a dictionary. I mean naughty words, swearing, profanity. I watch my tongue on YouTube because, algorithms. But I'm not averse to the odd spot of Anglo-Saxon invective when the situation demands it. And it can be very handy for a comedian. Anyway, the Daily Tism started recently, and I think it's hilarious. It's one of the rare examples of true autistic comedy. Now, humour is very subjective, but the Tism has made me laugh out loud a couple of times because it manages to find inclusive humour in the autistic experience that not only makes me chuckle at their observations of autistic life, but presents them in a way I think relates them well to a non-autistic audience in an accessible and a welcoming fashion. See what you think. Like I said, I'll leave a link down below. I'm actually thinking of doing something on the channel soon about autism, humour and comedy, and it would be good to get some alternative takes on it. So if you're watching this and you're a comedian, comedy writer, or an industry insider with an interesting take on comedy and autism, and obviously autistic people, then do drop me a line. It'd be nice to have someone's opinions other than mine on here for a change. While I think of it, actually, Fern Brady's got a new show on Netflix too, Autistic Bikini Queen, and it's an absolute belter in my book. We watched it as soon as we could. Fern ticks two boxes in our house. On top of being a great comic, she's an autist like me and a Scot like my wife. Obviously, you have to pay for Netflix, but if you fancy trying out an autistic comedian right now, both Joe Wells and Pierre Novellie have full shows available for nothing on YouTube, like hour-long shows. I'll link both of those in the description as well. On one of those, I think, counts as autistic comedy, at least in the way I think of it, and then only in parts. But they're both fantastic shows, in my opinion. Anyway, that's enough rambling for now. If you're up for the NEAS conference on the 16th, that's Thursday coming as I record this, and I should have this out later today or tomorrow, I'll see you there. But either way, I'm aiming to get the proper next video up in about a week's time. Now, since this isn't a regular video, and it doesn't feel right rounding up in the same way as I do with something maybe a bit more weighty, I'll try something a bit different. Toodaloo! If you've already liked and subscribed and would like to support the channel more, then please follow the Patreon links in the description to pledge what you feel is fair and affordable to help keep the lights on here and the content keep flowing.